Hi everybody, welcome to IELTS Breakthrough. In this video, I want to go through some example answers for part 1 in the speaking test. For those of you who are going to take the IELTS test and you are not confident about starting the speaking test well, this video will be really helpful for you. It will show you exactly how you need to answer those questions and get off to a really good start in your speaking test. So make sure that you watch through the whole video, learn from the examples and adapt them to your own answers. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is David Bourne. I am an IELTS coach for IELTS Breakthrough. IELTS Breakthrough helps you get a high score in IELTS so that you can study at an international university or progress in your career. Make sure that you are subscribed so that you can get access to all of the free tutorials that I have that will help you to improve your IELTS results. Let's talk about part 1 speaking. Now, I'll just remind you of one of the most important strategies in the speaking test. This strategy is to make sure that you say as much as you can. Simple answers with limited content will not get you the best score. Here are a couple of key tips that you can use in order to say as much as you can, and then we'll look at some examples. So the first tip is to apply the rule of 3. If you're not aware of what the rule of 3 is, it simply says say 2 or 3 things in response to the answer. Now, you might get a little bit confused. Okay, easy enough to say 2 or 3 things, but how can I think of 2 or 3 things? This is where you can use how, what, or why to get those extra points that you're going to talk about. How will be how do you feel about it, the good things and the bad things. What could be just actual objects that you can talk about, or the appearance of something. And of course, why will be to give reasons. The rule of 3 says you give 2 or 3 reasons in your answer. Now, let's look at an example to help you understand this strategy. Now, just listen to this example and tell me, is this a strong or a weak answer? Imagine that the examiner asked the question, do you think teenagers should learn to drive? And then you get this answer.
Yes, because it can save time for the parents.
Is it strong or weak? It's weak, isn't it? Why? Because the content is limited. Here's another example. Here's another example question from an examiner. Do many people in your country have a smartphone? And this is the answer.
Yes, people in my country like smartphones.
Again, you can tell that this kind of answer is not limited. It's not giving very much information. It will only get a very average score. Certainly, it won't lift you up into a band 7 or higher if you were to say something like this. The solution, as I said at the top of this video, is to say as much as you can. So let's just imagine that first example and answer it with a lot more detail. Of course, if the question is, do you think teenagers should learn to drive, then you need to give some reasons. Listen to this.
Yes, because it can save time for the parents. This is because teenagers nowadays have lots of extra activities outside their school day, to which parents must drive them. If these teenagers can drive themselves to these events, parents will have more free time.
And then with the second question, do many people in your country have a smartphone? Well, if you think about this question, probably you'd need to talk about in what ways do people use a smartphone in your country? So here is an example with more detail talking about what kind of things people use smartphones for.
Yes, people in my country like smartphones. There are a number of apps that they like to use. Facebook and instant messaging apps come to mind. Young people also like to play games on their smartphones. I don't know much about it, but Candy Crush is a popular game, I believe.
So you get the idea, right? The mindset is to use the rule of 3, and then you can boost it up with how, what, and why to get those 2 or 3 ideas. Now, let's go through a few more examples so that you really know how this strategy works. In part 1, remember that the part 1 topic is often talking about where you live. So let's look at an example here. The examiner question is, what is the area like where you live? And here is a nice, strong answer.
I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment. My apartment building is a 20-story tower in the center of the city. It is built on a main road. Although it is not an exciting area, the building does have a swimming pool and a garden area that is quite nice. And of course, the location being central is very strategic. There is a large mall within walking distance, and access to the toll road is only a few minutes away. All in all, I pretty much like the area around my apartment block.
If you pay attention to this answer, you can see that basically we are covering all of the facilities in the area. So this is using what to develop the ideas. In the next couple of examples, I'm going to use the same question. In part 1, it's very likely that you will get a do you like question. Here we're going to use the do you like cooking question. Of course, if it's do you like, then you need to give reasons that you can think of. Here is the first answer.
Yes, I do. I think this is because I want my children to have a healthy diet. If I cook, I know that my children will eat food that is good for them, especially vegetables.
And here is the second answer, this time answering as no.
No, I don't like cooking. It just seems a chore to do all the preparation. You know, if I cook, I must cut up all the vegetables, throw the rubbish away, and spend time in front of a hot cooker. I'd rather buy a takeaway and eat it in front of the TV.
Notice that all you need to answer this question well is to give a couple of relevant reasons. Staying with that first topic that you can get in part 1, this is a very common question that you can expect. What is your favourite room in your house? Now, when people answer this, they often give something very general like this. Oh, my bedroom is my favourite room in my house because I can do anything in my bedroom. Well, that's not going to help you with a high score because it is too general. Go deeper, be specific. And once again, what will be useful here because you can talk about the facilities, the objects in your favourite room that make it nice for you. Here is an example answer that is nice and strong.
My bedroom is my favourite room in my house. There are 3 main things I like about my bedroom. Firstly, it has 2 large windows that let in lots of sunlight. This makes my bedroom bright and clear at any time of the day. Secondly, I have my own flat screen TV, so I can watch anything I want without having to fight over the remote control with my brothers and sisters. Finally, my bedroom has its own bathroom, so I do not have to share with other people in my family.
And there you go. That is how to deal with part 1 questions by using the rule of 3 and saying as much as you can. Remember, go as deep as you can. Say 2 or 3 things. And it's also a good idea to practice your answers to these questions, because sometimes if you go blank, it might be that you just need to kind of grow your imagination skills. So what I will do is I will give you a set of example part 1 questions that you can look at, and I'd like you to actually think about them and use your imagination to try and sort of brainstorm 2 or 3 things that you could say in answer to this question in a way that fits your own situation. That is an example of how to deal with the start of part 1, and I hope that this video has given you inspiration and the ability to really answer part 1 with a lot more interesting responses than the ones that most candidates always come up with, and then they get disappointed that their score is just average because their answers are really average in content. Let me know in the comments, how else would you like me to help you with part 1 of the speaking test? Also, are there any questions that you really have problems with? Or not just questions, topics as well? Let me know in the comments. It would be great to hear from you. In the meantime, have a great day, afternoon, morning, week, weekend in whatever you're doing. I will see you for the next video.